Yeah, okay. It is recording. I didn't see the thing come in that usually does, but it does say we're recording, so I think we're okay. So here we are. I can't remember what I was going to say, but it doesn't matter. It didn't have anything to do with anything. And Fanny Sophia, hello, love. I know you can't stay with us long, but I'm so glad to see you. And JPU as well, since she's brought you. So, Glenda, hello, my love. How are you? Good to see you. And Philip, it's a pleasure. Thank you. And JP and Fanny Sophia and Ted Little. Hello, Ted. Thanks for being here. And Jason, hey, Jason, good to see you, sir. And my love, Susan. Hello, dear. How are you? And my love, Chris. Hello, Chris. How are you? Good to see you. And golly, I'm going to get called out by all my girlfriends. Here's Judy Belasco. Hello, love. It's very good to see you. And Lloyd, you're also my love, but I shan't bother by saying so. Otherwise, it might be misunderstood. You are all my loves, but it's not this language, this teaching doesn't use much of that effusive sort of language, but it does some. Robin and Susie. Hello, Susie, my love. It's good to see you. And Robin, my dear friend. And Tom Smith, my dear friend. And Bill Delaware. Hello, my dear friend. And Tammy, so glad to have you with us. Welcome. Tammy's going to have an awakening session here shortly. And Kai, it's good to see you. Hello. And Darren. Hey, Darren. And Keith, it's good to see you, sir. Thank you. And thank you for your email. Meant a lot. And Sri, hey, Sri, how are you? Good. Sri had a session with me this past week, and I think is a new man. And Barbara, hello, love. Good to see you. And Art and Jean, it's a pleasure as always. Yeah. And there is my pal, Ian. Hello, Ian. It's so good to see you. Boy, the room is full of bubbly energy now. Dennis, hey, Dennis, good to see you, sir. John Hayes, it's a pleasure to be with you. Willie Hackett, hello, Willie. And John Lane, it's good to have you with us. Can't see you, but that's okay if that's what needs to take place. And Prue on the phone. Hello, Prue. Great to be with you, dear. So we'll go ahead and get started with our couple of minutes of silent meditation. And who knows, maybe others will join us during that time, but we'll go ahead and start now. And when I say silent meditation, new folks, what I'm really talking about is I just want you to notice that right now, right here, there is a sense of being here. There's a sense, by which I mean there's a sense of existence, a simple sense of aliveness. And what would be good, it would be if you would just notice that sense and just stay with that noticing if you can for just a couple of minutes. And then I will, we'll move on. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. We have a few hands up, which is good. Those of you who are prone to ask questions at the end, go ahead and get those hands up now, and that will be appreciated. And we'll go ahead and start out with my dear friend, Glenda. Hello, Glenda.
Hello, Fred. Can you hear me?
Oh, let me get unmuted. Pardon me. Okay. Now I can hear you, dear.
Hello, Fred.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I am clearly an expression of paradox today.
Hey.
I came back from the wedding last weekend with I thought was a cold. And then I started getting reports. My different relatives were testing positive for COVID. So on Thursday, I took the test and I tested positive for COVID.
Oh.
I did want to share. I wanted my hand up fast in case I feel like I'm fading fast.
I understand.
But it's been interesting.
I'm so sorry. Let me just say, I'm so sorry. We all are. And
thank you.
Sure.
It just really is a bad cold. You know, the biggest nuisance about it is, well, at least I took the test because that was the only thing that got Vincent to stay away from me. You know, we're very close. He didn't want to sleep without me. He wanted this. Finally, when I took that, you know, so I've been like this, and at least I have some peace of mind to protect him. He's doing okay. It was very unusual because the that separation, the quarantining thing, has given me a lot of alone time, which I don't usually have. And the introverted nature of this thing over here has been actually kind of enjoying that a lot. Mm-hmm. I've been, you know, listening to you a lot, and an interesting condition of really experiencing not knowing, like even all the things that I thought I understood are coming into question. And actually, I will ask you about one of them, but I really noticed how language separates things.
Yeah.
Even the subtlety of what I realized that with the sense of being, before, it seemed to have two aspects to me: an awareness component and the feeling vibration in the body, the aliveness. But what, I don't know what's so or not so, but what occurred to me was that language was separating, just experiencing the aliveness of awareness. So that was one thing that came up. And there's this sense of I don't want to say it's not clarity, because actually it's like a not knowing that feels clearer than anything. It's like this openness to, wow, I thought there was an understanding, but there's just this feeling of something trying to bubble up, more clarity. Wait, I don't want to say waiting, because that's time, but that's what's going on.
Still feels like it's sort of in line.
Yeah, like I'm like, oh, I'm like kind of like getting excited. Like, I wonder what it's gonna be. I just feel it, you know, on top of this not knowing or not understanding things. So a question I do have, it's not a question, but I would like you to expound upon. It's from wake up to what you are not now, right now.
Mhm.
And you mention in it that there is a wearing, which I love, aware, the feeling of the ing is everything. Pure, unowned, unknowing awareness. And I wanted you to speak to more to that, but I actually think I'm in the process of experiencing it. You know, it just occurs to me because I always thought, I guess the awareness was being aware, like of the things we're aware of. So it's the knowing of
Right.
the relative experience. But when I heard you say that, and now as I'm listening to what I'm saying to you, it sounds almost like it. I don't know, please clarify, expound, please.
What you're talking about is that which is prior to relativity.
Mhm.
There's just a wearing. It's not a wearing of, there's a, and that a wearing is it holds within it. It's just a wearing, and we want to make that into an experience, but it's not. It's potential. It's potentiality for the advent of the sense of being. But that awaring, there is no sense of being with that. So in the absence of a sense of being, there's no knowing, but there's, you know, to me, that seems like there's something there in that nothing. I mean, it's a something, nothing, a nothing, something. And because and there is no description for it, but if I had one, I would use the word potentiality. And with there is no consciousness in the absence of a unit. Doesn't have to be a human unit, but there must be a unit.
Mhm.
We tend to think that, you know, and it's said, you know, consciousness is all. And if we're talking about relativity, that's true. But not all that is held within relativity.
Mhm.
There is
the awaring, because it's obviously something that there's a consciousness of, is it that the bleed through of the prior?
the awaring is not something that, no, it's not bleed through, because it's not something that we actually experience. When I talk about bleed through, what I mean is that we're just coming to see what we are. Because that nothing thing that we're trying to talk about, that's what we are, right? That's the truth of truths.
Yes.
So, and from that arises this present sense of being. But we just want to remember, as I pointed out before, that it's a sense of being. That's what we call it. It's what I've always called it, and it's been called by others the same thing, the sense of being. And I just like to put particular scrutiny on the word sense, because the sense of being is not a statement of being, not a statement of a being. It's just a sense of being. So those of you who have your cameras off, please point them toward the ceiling or something. It's and cut them back on if you would. I don't have to see you, but I don't like seeing darkness, unless you're, of course, out of your rooms right now. So with the advent of the sense of being, that's when there is a consciousness and a unit happen. It's not one before the other. It's simultaneous. Is the only way I can think of it. It's chicken and egg, which is first. There's no answer to that. And there's no answer to this either, but there is the advent. And I like to, the way I always like to describe this for those who haven't heard it is that think of that which we're speaking of as being a big vat of wax, a big vat, just an endless, boundless, unimaginable, but it's wax. And then these things are the wick. And and consciousness is the flame that the wick puts forth. And flames come and go because wicks come and go. But the fuel is never, ever, the source is never burned out, is never used, and it is not depleted in any way, shape, or fashion, no matter how many candles are burning. And I'm going to push the metaphor too far, I'm afraid, but you can.
Where is awareness or awaring in that metaphor, Fred?
Well, the wax, the wax that I'm speaking of, it's living, or it's I can't say it's dead and I can't say it's alive. It's just, it's beyond either one of those. You can't really say anything about it and you can't even really say it is, but you certainly can't say it isn't. We just say this is, and that certainly feels like it is. I don't know how to put that more in a better way. So, but that is from which all of this springs. And the experience here, I mean, you can just look at your own life and see that all of these wicks have a short-lived experience, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just so preposterous that we try to accumulate. And it's like, if we can just get enough stuff, they can't fit us in the grave. But that's never been proven true. Yeah. So we believe we're going to find happiness through acquisition, because then we'll be more. But the sense of being can never be more than that. It doesn't matter what is, there
is no more.
There's no more.
It's all already.
It's all already, and always is, always has been, always will be. And that's a little time thing there, as you say. So it's a trap, but it's still a way. It's still worth passing along. So I become more, and meaning the Fredness here, it becomes more and more conscious awakeness, becomes more and more consciousness of the short-lived experience of Fredness, if you will. Yeah. Hard to grab the language. And it leaves me less and less excited about acquisition.
Yes. Right.
About owning, about having, about becoming. That's what it really amounts to. Yeah. Is that there's a cessation for the appetite of becoming.
Yeah. I think that once that happens, it kind of goes hand in hand with a sensation, less wanting to acquire as well.
Yeah.
There's no point necessarily to it.
Yeah, right. There is no point, but there is for these units, I think it's the end.
Yeah, there's the immediate pleasure of it, like your pocket knives and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
They feel good.
That's right.
Nice things, a part of enjoying the experience of this apparent world.
Yeah, but you got to watch out where you're loves your pleasures take you. I went to theoretically a knife exhibit yesterday, and it wasn't much of one, but it was at the fairgrounds. And I went alone, and before I left the house, I thought I probably don't need a cane. And then I thought, well, you'd be an idiot to walk and go to the fairgrounds and not take a cane. So I took a cane, which was, and I noticed right away that it was a good thing I had, because I needed the cane before I ever got to the exhibit building. And I got to the exhibit building and I walked around it up and down a couple of aisles, and I realized I need to go. I need to get out of here. This is really tiring me out.
Tiring.
So on the way back to the car, I was just like picking out, okay, I'll go rest by that tree for a minute, and then I'll go rest by that column, whatever. And on my way to the last tree that I had as a goal, the legs, just the knees, whatever, just gave out, and I fell. And I could not get back up. This you talk about humility. I just fell down, and I'm sitting there on my ass and right on the ground, and there are people around, and there's, here I am. And fortunately, a beautiful man came up, and turned out he was a nurse. And he lifted me to my feet, and I still couldn't stand. I said, thank you, but I still couldn't stand. So he put me back down on the ground, and I rested for a little bit, and then he picked me up. And then he gave me over to his friend and his daughter, and then he went and got my car and brought it to me. And I left, and I told him, I think it's worth falling down just to find a good Samaritan. Yeah, it was good for the soul. And, and this unit can use any humility it gets, right? So no matter how painful. So
those experiences, though, when, your body and your intention don't match, it's just so clear that
it's so clear
you're not the body.
That's right. I mean, because Betsy, I have practiced, my physical training. Part of that is learning to get up off the floor, because that is the key to remaining independent. And then that, and getting up out of a chair. You gotta do those things well, or you're going to end up in a home. So I practice those things, and I do them, and it's not that big a deal to get up off the floor. But that's if I haven't walked all around there, and it's also if I haven't just gotten over an illness.
Yeah, your muscles, it's like when you work out and the muscles go to the point of exhaustion, whatever they call it. Yeah. You already reached that point, so you couldn't apply what you learned.
Yeah, I needed to sit there until the next day when the muscles would have had a chance to grow.
Well, I certainly hope you have kinder lessons of humility going forward.
Well, that was a good one to learn. It was I came home and told Betsy that it was an educational disaster.
Well.
So, hell, I've forgotten where we were now. We probably ought to call
We should say goodbye and give other people a chance to be with you. Love you. I'll be with you later this week.
That'll be wonderful. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
And let's see who is next. Hey, Philip, how are you?
Hi, Oneness.
Oneness, good to see you.
Yeah, and you? How are you? 100% now?
Yeah. Yes, I'm 100%. I can look out around the room and see that I'm quite well. I'm not so sure about this seat, but
those are beautiful variations of yourself. Yeah. And how's Willie? Is he?
Willie's doing great. Thank you for asking. Let me get you on. I didn't ever put Glenda on there. Let me put you on a speaker view so we can see you. I'm sorry, Glenda. So Willie had his 5th chemo treatment this week. And he is at least in remission. There's no sign of cancer, and they have gone ahead. The nurse who did not think he had much of a chance, the oncologist, who was not encouraging for us to actually get any treatment for him, has now stated that he is, at the very least, he's in remission after his 8th. I don't know how long after his 8th, but after his 8th visit, after his 8th treatment, then they can do run another battery of tests that's far more extensive than what they can do just as he comes to visit. So they'll have a better sense if there's any cancer floating around in there and it's just in remission, or if there's just no apparent cancer in there. So, but the good news, he's never had a sick day from cancer. Had a little bit of a down day here or there from chemo, but he didn't even have that this time. So he's doing great.
Oh, good. I've been thinking of him, so I'm very pleased to hear about you. Yeah, just over here, just a report and a question. This week, there's been a much clearer seeing of one of the most simple foundations of this teaching, and that is what is.
Yeah.
That whether oneness is resting as conscious awareness or unconscious awareness, what is happening is what is meant to be happening, and there is no alternative. Because there was very, very subtle, extremely subtle resistance that I noticed this week, that there was a frustration of the amount of unconscious awareness that there was, and there were the thoughts of this shouldn't be happening. I should be clearer than this. So it was, there was a lot of, obviously that was noticing these thought patterns were not the thought patterns.
Yeah, right.
And that was kind of seen through. So that was a big thing over here, because it was just and it's so freeing. It's such freedom with that, just to roll with the punches, just to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And it's quite relaxing for the body as well. I couldn't realize that after I'd seen this, how the body was just very supple and very relaxed.
Yeah. Because it's a recognition of here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no alternative.
There's no and on top of it.
Yeah.
It's like when I sat on the ground yesterday, there was no story of it shouldn't have happened, or no embarrassment, no anything. It was just perplexed.
It is what it is. I just think the other thing is there's just been a real giving up of I've got to understand this, I've got to understand oneness.
Yeah. Thank God you're getting that. if you don't give that, you're doomed. Right?
It's true, because the mind the mind here it now is very much the servant of oneness, rather than it trying to believe it's the initiator thought, and it's about me, the special one. The
ones who and people who have the most difficulty in clearing, who've had an initial breakthrough. But I was thinking about cutting a video. I actually hadn't written it down yet, so I'll do it as I tell you. But actually, I'm interested in cutting a video on something to the fact that the people that have the most difficulty with this are the people who cannot believe their own experience. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, there's been the experience of truth. It was very clear at that moment. Yeah. But that idea is unacceptable to the character.
Yeah.
And so it's because the character is absolutely insistent upon understanding this.
Yeah.
And and the character don't want to give in until, well, maybe I won't understand it, but I'm not going to wake up till I do. And it's like, okay, good luck.
Yeah. You can never understand the
never understandable, is it?
Yeah. It's not. It's that it is limited. The mind is so limited, and it cannot hold the truth. The part can never hold the whole, can it?
Yes, just right, precisely.
Yeah. Beyond that, yeah. And I think just a question that I got is from I think you were talking about nothingness prior to consciousness. I'm just interested in how did you grok that?
And I grokked that.
Yeah,
I grokked that. This is a lot of years ago. psychiatrist from California who was the right hand person of one of the spiritual teachers that everybody's heard of, she was his right hand person, but she couldn't wake up from it. She could see he had it, but we were in the car. Anyway, she flew to Columbia. She stayed a couple of days with me, and she woke up while we were here, and right away. And she was like, "Why can't this be?" What the hell was your question? Because I see I'm into a story. Let me.
Sorry, yeah. It's when did you actually grok the?
Okay, yeah. Thank you. So, yeah. So, any rate, sometime after she left my apartment, when she went back to California, there was the Science and Non-Duality Conference, which she attended with the guy, of course. And she wrote me back, and she wrote me and she said, or no, she called me on the phone, and she said, so the big deal at at the Science and Non-Duality Conference this year is the question. She said, the guy who has the diamond approach, I can't remember him, but he's almost ALMAS, I think. Big, long-term, big following. And Rupert Spira, big teacher with big following, that they had a sort of a disagreement, which was what was consciousness it? In other words, did consciousness have to be present? I guess that was, did consciousness has to be present in order for the world?
Right, okay.
And, but the way that they were phrasing it, I can't remember how she phrased it, but the way that they were phrasing it was that one of them was saying there's something prior to consciousness, and the other one was saying, oh, hell no. And so she called me to get the answer, and I said, gee, I don't know. I never thought about that. I said, my guess right off the top would be that it's both. And I said, just because it almost always is whenever there's a left and a right question to the any rate, that set me off. And for like 9 months, I pondered that question. And I couldn't get it. I wasn't trying to ponder it. I just couldn't get it off my mind.
Okay.
And then one night, I had just an explosive realization. I don't mean, lights and bells and whistles, but it was an explosive realization. Interior wise, at least, it was an explosive realization. And that realization was, oh my God, consciousness is an arising too.
Right, okay.
And I never ever had seen that. And that's what they were really talking about. That was not the words that they used, but that was what they were talking about. And that was the answer. That was the truth of it. Consciousness comes and goes. And now it's just like falling off a log, because we talk about, the sense of being and coming and going and all of this, and bodies being present for consciousness and all of that. So but I wouldn't teach that for months, except for when I was forced to. I didn't want anything to do with that knowledge, because it really upset my apple cart. I had a very good and successful oneness teaching. That's what I had. That's what I knew. I was taking everybody as far as I had gone, which is there's just one thing going on. And that's a great seeing, but it's not the ultimate truth. So that's how I grok. That's how it was grok. I didn't grok it. There's no one here, but it was right. Okay. It grokked me at that point.
Yeah. It took 9 months for the seeing to come.
To get beyond, or 6 months or something, whatever. How long would it have been? It would have been at least 6 months of just right. And it would just come up. And when I tried not to teach it, and it wouldn't I wouldn't hear of it. When I first started teaching, I kept saying, I'm so sorry to have to bring this up. I don't want to tell you this, but I just noticed that I have to. I would explain that. And then eventually that became the teaching.
Yeah. Okay. And then it was very much it's the divine mystery is the source, because
It is a divine mystery. Yeah, it is. And it is a mystery. And I had always hated that because my neighbor was a druid, and my next door neighbor was a druid. And so he, no, he was like a druid. He had the same beliefs, but he wasn't in the druid thing, I don't think. At any rate, whatever it was pan, there was pan awareness, whatever. And he always said, well, yes, we're following the mystery. And I was like, I don't. And I told him one time, I said, man, I don't want anything to do with the mystery. I want to know.
Yeah.
And I did come to know until I came to unknow.
Right.
And the unknowing was a much vaster freedom. And that had been parallel in my experience ever since my, if you will, it had been there. That was my experience without it being noticed for the first several years of my awakening. Because I was 5 years awake before I ever started teaching. And I hit a whole nother level about 3 years into to teaching to the world. 3 years in teaching and 2 years teaching on the internet. That before that came about.
No, but it is. It's as I said earlier, it's just so relaxing, just not the unknowing, and just to revel in this playground. The richness and beauty.
I don't know, and I don't care, and I don't care, and I don't care to know. I don't care to know, right?
No, exactly. You don't need to want to know.
That's just an invitation for misery.
Yeah, exactly. Suffering, isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah, because if I know, then I've got a pretty good idea what should be going on here. And it's always been my experience that whatever it is that's going on here, it's never quite right.
Yeah.
I don't know how it should be, but it certainly shouldn't be like this. And it's that's where knowing takes you.
Yeah. It's just stripping away, isn't it? We keep on stripping away.
So the idea of understanding this thing that I can't even speak of.
Yeah. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal.
Yeah. What is it that even knows of it? I don't know. What it can only be it, because it can't not be it, because there's only that.
Yeah.
But it's that in some bizarre form or whatever that comes to know itself. It comes to know itself, but it doesn't come to know. It comes to know itself through realization, but it comes to how do I say it? Unknow itself. Through the process that occurs beyond there. Sometimes it certainly doesn't. It doesn't happen for everybody. It doesn't need to happen for everybody.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Sorry, you are now. Yeah, you
got me now? Can everybody else hear me?
Sorry, you just went out for a few seconds. Okay.
So John says it can hear me. Thank you. So wherever I was, I don't know, but the words are starting to fail me, which means that we're probably through.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Oneness. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Love it.
Love it. Thank you.
JP, come on and join us.
Hello, Fred.
Hello,
Can
JP.
you hear me? Hi, how are you?
Fine. I'm just doing very well, and it's very good to see you.
Likewise. I sent you an email a couple of weeks ago, and I said there was a question or a thought that I wanted to hear you talk about.
Right.
So I'll just tell you the backstory.
Okay.
Again here. So it's I was taking our dog for a walk a couple of weeks ago, and it was the beginning of the Ukraine invasion, and there was quite a lot of unit overwhelm going on over here.
And you have to, people need to understand, that you're in Finland and you have a 1,000-mile border with the Soviet Union.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that, that gave rise to all sorts of, scenarios here. So anyway, I was taking the dog out for a walk, and then I went. We still have quite a lot of snow here on the ground, so there was this very thick snow crust here, which carries your whole weight when you walk on it. So for some reason, you know, I just decided to go and lie on the ground, and there was a starry night, so I could see all the stars there. And first the thought came to my mind, which was, I've been reading a lot of war history at the moment. So I looked at the starry sky, and there was a thought that many people have seen this as their last thing in life, you know, before they've died, because many people have died on battlegrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought was immediately replaced by another thought, which was that no one has ever died. And that was such a soothing thought. And
Yeah.
it felt, you know, of course, extremely real, as it is. But I just wanted to hear you, you know, talk about that.
Yeah, the biggest perk in being the unborn is that you don't have to die, because you've never been born, and only that which is born can die or fade away. And hence my discussion about these things. This morning, we listened on a radio show called To the Best of Our Knowledge. And there was a segment on there about mountains and how some cultures, at least, they are seen to be living beings. Actually, the whole earth is seen to be a living being, but the mountain is seen to be a living being. And the different, and what a different perspective that brings on you. So this unbornness is that's one of the things that we will not accept. Even when we have seen the truth, we cannot accept the fact that this thing is, so what Fred's talking about is really, really true. I mean, no, just kind of true, and no, shucks, you know, it's really, really the truth. And that, and only when there is, it's not an experience, but it's the only way to discuss it. When the experience is just such a bad word. When just try to play with me here in the language. When the unknown makes itself, when the unknowing makes it, when the mystery makes itself known. The only way I can think of it. And there's a glimpse of that in every awakening, but mostly most awakenings are really built around the seeing oneness, which in itself is a beautiful thing, and it's not to be right. It's not like it's nothing. It's a huge thing. It is the most significant spiritual event in almost everybody's life, right? And almost all teaching is directed toward that, which I understand it, that. And a lot of the teaching here is directed toward that too, because it's the most profound seeing, and that's as far as a lot of people get, which that's as far as one gets, that's as far as you need to get. There is no payoff whatsoever to see anything beyond that. But if you have, you wouldn't give it up. Although it's of no value to anything or anyone, but you still couldn't. So that unknowing is birthless and deathless. There are no boundaries because there's no it. There's no it there. Yes, we can't say there's no it, but we can't say I've got it, right? I mean, it's not that kind of it. We can say there's mystery. But that's an unsatisfying description. Any description will be unsatisfying because no description will be the truth. Even conventional awakening cannot be understood by the mind. And when there's when there can be a further seeing, I will call it, but it's really a further being. But it's a seeing being. I can't really, you see, I'm lost for words. So at any rate, with what happened here upon that was that it wasn't long before there came just an ultimate conviction. And it's just a conviction in the same way that I have a conviction that this is my left hand. And you can say anything you want. We can run any kind of test that you want, but I'm still going to remain convinced that this is the unit's left hand. I don't have any hands, but this unit does, and there's the left one. So that because it's absolute conviction, you can't prove your way out of that, right? And there can be reasonable conviction. I mean, there can be a level of conviction prior to that. I don't understand what I'm even saying, but I do know that there was an understanding of something prior. Well, as I said in the story, when I talked about how to have grokked it, there was that understanding that was there, and that was not the same thing as the so-called experience that occurred sometime after that, right? It was a seeing, but it wasn't, but it was almost like Fred saw that, or the enlightened Fred saw that, or whatever. I don't know how to even put it, right? So, so that's my word on that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also
Well,
okay to say, boy, I was out walking my dog and I looked up at the sky and I was at a loss for words. That'd be another very short way to say what I've just said in about 2,000 words.
Yeah, yeah.
Or there
First,
was a
there
loss
was-
for words.
Yeah. First, there was this, this thought that was filled with words, in the sense that, seeing that so many people have died, and then there was this recognition of
The first one is a psychological recognition.
exactly. Yeah.
There's a psychological recognition, an intellectual recognition, and then there becomes like a psychological recognition, which is much deeper than that, and on just a different thing from that intellectual. Hi there, how are you? And what's her name?
Isabella.
Isabella. Okay.
Yeah.
So, lovely. The words have stopped.
Yep. Good for us.
Thank you
so
very much.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.
So Tammy, good for you for putting up your hand and getting involved. Come on in.
Thank you, Fred. It's interesting how subjects come up, and stuff. And I just want to thank everyone who's spoken, because it's sort of the same thread that I wrote down when we began, and I raised my hand. And so when I began looking at your teaching a number of years ago, and I read your book about unknowing and so forth.
Have we ever talked before?
We talked the last weekend, just briefly. I just said
Okay.
hello.
Okay. So
That's
there's I was going to say, okay. I knew there was a physical recognition.
my first satsang last Sunday. But this thing about a spiritual bypassing. And so there was something that for me, I was like, okay, I know that there's been identification with the body and so forth like that. And I know that a lot of what you talk about is, that this is not who I am and so forth. And so some things that come up in this experience is I guess I'll just call it conditioning, childhood conditioning or past conditioning or whatever, that there are physical experiences, trauma based on traumatic experiences and so forth that continue to come up. And so as I do this work, I'll just call it that, over decades now, there's been this sense of, I've used the body in a way to, to focus attention, right? Because I noticed, like, okay, attention usually goes out and it seeks and it looks and it, it's always external, so to speak. And so I've used the body to, okay, focus inside, to meditate. It's an internal experience and all those sorts of things, right? So I was listening to one of your videos about, there was an exercise about space, and to look all around you. It was the one that you did not long ago. Think about self-realization, and to look at everything around and look at all the space and all the things in the space. And so I did that. And I was laying in bed, and I was going along with you and doing that. And so I just sort of had this claustrophobic experience.
Oh, yeah. I understand that well.
I'm like, oh my God, like there is only one space and I cannot get out, I can't escape. I can't leave. I can't breathe now because there's a finite amount of air. You know what I mean? All that sort of fear stuff came up. So if you could speak to this.
There's what you're doing is you're following the words, but you're not getting the message. And the message is that I've experienced what you experienced, not in that same way, that close and fearful, but I have had the sense, my God, I can't get out of here. And this was in my first year of clearing, I know, because I remember it so well. And I've had it since. I mean, then I had it some in the next couple of years, but it will always got, it was always seen through, or it dissipated faster and faster. What we're missing is the message is that you are the space.
Yeah, I got that intellectual.
So no, yeah, but but the thing is, let me ask you this: are you convinced that you're that body?
No, I'm not convinced.
Good,
There's
excellent.
doubt.
Right,
Lots
okay.
of doubt.
You have doubts, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
So most of this, I know this is not really very satisfying here, but most of what you're really getting at, we're going to get at very thoroughly and deeply in the awakening session.
Okay.
But to give you sort of a little bit of a lifeline in between now and then, let me see what I can come up with. So just pretend for a minute, just, you don't have to believe anything. Just pretend for just a minute that, that you're not that body. Okay. And what do you find here in the absence? If you're not that body, just take for granted, I'm not this, but this consciousness remains. If you're not this body, what are you? What's left?
There's awareness.
There's awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you think that there's a Tammy?
No.
Okay. And it's fine. That's that you don't think. So if there's no Tammy, what do you think it is that's noticing awareness?
All I know is there's a sense of beingness. I don't know how else to verbalize.
You're right, that's fine. So is there a sense of an entity knowing that it is this awareness, or is it, or this space, knowing that it is this space?
Not in the way that I've
not in the way that's normally thought.
Yeah.
So if you are not that body, if you're not an object at all? What if you were not an object at all? I mean, if you're not that body, it's not likely you're this screwdriver, right? So it's so if you're not that body, then what are you? Beautiful, beautiful. We'll pursue that. Yes. Thank you. Okay, we're on a roll. So Barbara Smith, please come in, my dear.
Hello.
Perfect,
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
And happy International Day of Happiness,
Oh, great.
which
Thank you.
I discovered it is today, according to the United Nations, which of course
Oh, wow.
rules everything. But I discovered it from Rupert, who did a little YouTube this morning. So I just thought, good, that's good.
Yeah. Be a big
and-
letdown tomorrow, though.
Well, and it's, yeah, tomorrow will be the International Day of Disappointment, right? But, you know, that's good too.
I get it. Yeah.
Nothing against that. As always, you know, I hear everybody and it's like you're all talking about the stuff I was going to talk about, which is what
Yeah,
Tammy
right.
just said. I mean,
Yeah,
this-
everybody steals everybody else's
I
topic.
know. So I was just going to report so that I missed last week because I was traveling to this funeral of this woman who had been my neighbor for more than 15 years, and who was 88 years old, had lived this unbelievably fabulous, interesting life in all kinds of ways, and was this great neighbor in the sense that, I don't know, in the 18th century, they used the word neighbor as a verb. It's something you do with the people who live around you or whatever. You're back and forth and you keep them company and you trade things, and you fight and get into debt to each. I mean, you know, it wasn't.
He was good at neighboring, though.
But yeah, she really neighbored, and her whole, half the town of Charlottesville, Virginia, I swear, would stop by this woman's kitchen at some point. It was always unlocked. You could always walk in. She'd give you a cup of tea. You'd hear about whatever was going on. You'd complain about the world, how terrible the world was, which it always was every single day. And you just feel great. You know, she was just available and in all kinds of ways. And that was a tremendous gift. So anyway,
Wow.
this funeral was quite beautiful. And it was beautiful to be there with lots of people whom I knew, most of whom I knew. And I think it's kind of interesting that I'm sorry, Glenda went off to a wedding and got sick, which isn't right. And then I went off to a funeral and got well, which isn't really right. There's such a paradox, this stuff, right? Like ever since then, I felt so connected with people and so good. And also, you know, it seems a paradox because it's a celebration of and a sense of this person as if she were an individual and as if you've lost this individual. And yet at the same time, not really sad. I mean, partly when you die at 88, what's to regret? But even outside the relative realm, it's like, well, she's still here. I mean, we're still here. There's been no real loss here. There's been nothing but gain through this person's life, which isn't even a person's, I don't know. I mean, I just have been aware since of something I don't understand, which is this kind of porousness of us all and the way in which you can both love this supposed relative individual being, right? You can absolutely just adore them and learn all this from them, and and as you do that, become them, and they, you know, connect with them and lose the boundaries between you. So you can both have them be an individual and also know that that's not true, and it just makes it more, somehow it makes it better to just know both things, right? I mean,
It does.
have
Yeah. It's far superior than knowing one or the other.
yeah.
And it's really not that the boundaries go away or subside or anything like that. It's just the noticing that there aren't any.
The noticing, right? Okay, that's great. Well, there was great. It was impressive how much happiness there was. You know, it was just like so many.
Well, she sounds like a wellspring of happiness.
Oh man, she was. Oh, and she was a piece of work. She had real opinions about the world, and she'd let you know, you know. But you always, I mean, it was great. She was just herself, and so I'm incredibly grateful to have known her and loved her. But I'm also just hoping to, well, I don't know. I'm just experiencing this sense of how it's a paradox and I don't really understand it, and that's okay.
That's it. Yeah, it's okay to not know. And who would have ever guessed that?
Yeah,
Because
not me.
not me. I mean, everything is built around the value of knowing and the value of understanding, because I mean, we exist as the species is very successful for its own sake, although it has squandered a planet in the making, right? In the making of the species. But from the species' standpoint, it's very successful. From the Earth's standpoint, it's the worst mistake ever made. But I had no idea what I was going to say. I kind of think I said it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I said what I had to say too.
Perfect. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. And Lloyd, come on in.
Hello.
Hey, pal.
Gosh, I'm not sure if Judy was before me or not. I've lost track. I thought maybe
No,
she was.
she's two down. It's you
Okay.
and then Judy. Oh no, we're just one down. I can lower you. Yeah, she's next.
Okay, great. It comes down to, you were talking about believing your own experience. Well, the next stage, as you were saying, after brooding for all that time about something before consciousness, the next stage is believing your own non-experience.
Yeah, it's that believing your own. Do you mean that in terms of realization?
Yeah, that is to think everyone still thinks, and it's been one of my favorite themes this week, that awakening is an experience.
Yeah, you've just stated it more accurately than I do, and thank you for the correction. It's not believing your own experience; it's believing your own lack of
unexperience.
Unexperience. That's correct.
Yeah, and that's a shocking kind of a statement, but it makes some sense, and that idea of making sense, that also is interesting, because when you're brooding about something like that and it doesn't leave you alone, I think it's the mind chewing on it and chewing on it, and so the non-experience doesn't have a dog in the fight, you know. So it's the mind slowly chewing and becoming, I would say, becoming at peace with non-experience.
Yeah, because it's the mind that is, even though we can't actually identify a mind without thought. So we could say thoughts. There are thoughts prior to that, and then there's no thoughts. And then thoughts return, and we can call those thoughts, we can call them mind. I'm just pointing out that
Mhm.
so
Yeah, there's no real unit.
That's right.
In fact, understanding the mind is way up there with things that can't be understood. Can the mind really understand itself? Can a string of thoughts understand itself? It seems like a string of thoughts can reach an equilibrium where there's peace about an issue, and it's not anybody having that peace, but the equilibrium is there. And I think that's why satsang is so good, because it gives us a chance to chew over these non-experiences, and so it's refreshing that the mind, it helps all of our minds together kind of agree that it's okay to even contemplate non-experience.
It's like, you certainly we can't relate anything at all about that which is prior to consciousness. I nonetheless notice it's my favorite thing to talk about. Meaning, right? Meaning it's just the joy of the doing of it.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I don't know if I can find it. There was something in Nisargadatta that implied the same thing, that that there's hardly anything more fun than contemplating that which cannot be understood.
That's it. Yeah, just contemplating that.
And it's totally paradoxical. It shouldn't be that way. It should upset you, or it should frustrate you. But at some point, it's just thrilling, and it's a kind of a pleasure or a joy of an unusual kind
just the
to
joy.
Contemplate that.
It is. It's a very quiet jubilation.
Yes, and Barbara says it's a relief,
it's a relief,
and that's true too. Because what some people say, that what pleasure is just the relief of pain for a while.
Yes, well, when we look at the reason we're so hung up with acquisition is we can't not be, really, because when there's an itch that's going on, and when we buy it, the itch disappears, then we think that we have satisfied, that we have placated the itch, but we haven't. What's happened is that when we got that, which we were so, I just got to have this, so focused on getting that. I don't care if it's enlightenment or a new pair of shoes, whatever it is, I want to get it. And then when we get that, there's just for a moment, there's the craving for that disappears. The craving disappears for just a moment, because it's been satisfied. But that's the craving that that my friend, one of my millionaire friends whose only problem is money, right? And when he had cancer, I told him, man, you got to let this cancer help you see to the truth, because if you don't, as soon as this cancer's over, you're going to be right back at the only thing that mattered, because he, when he had cancer, he didn't give a shit about money, right? The only thing he cared about was the fact that he had cancer, and that's the only thing that mattered. And as soon as he got rid of that, the desire to, the money thing came right back, because it's just there's a craving for bigger, better, more, and this happens to be it.
Yes, exactly. And to kind of tie together, it's an interesting thing how a theme develops in the satsang. JP's comments and Barbara's comments about both one a funeral and the other looking up at the stars in a time of war. One should be so lucky as to be dying looking up at the stars, because that vast openness is really the echo of your true being, so that, and also, Shakespeare's thought that all the world's a stage, that it comes to mind because if a character dies on stage, then you can feel like what Barbara was saying, you can feel a lot of gratitude for a part well played, whether hero or villain, a
Yeah,
part
yeah.
well played. But you know that that part was a script, and that the no one has died because it was just an actor. And so that realization that we're all actors like that, that brings a lot of relief as well, don't you think?
Yeah, sometimes I will tell Betsy, we're watching TV and it's we're particularly, there's a particularly gripping story on, and I look at it and I said, "Boy, this guy's just terrific at being evil, isn't he?" And so there's that recognition of it's the coming back. It's not being in that story. It's coming back and watching that story be played. And there's appreciation for the splendid job of evil that's being hatched out in front of us, because ultimately everything that happens on the play counts. We got to get it right because that's the way it goes, but none of it matters.
Well, that's right. The contrasts are there, but the contrasts are always in balance, such that +4 and -4 equals 0, you know? So here's what Nisargadatta says. I'd love to share this little thing.
Yeah.
A man who says, "Now I'm happy," is between two sorrows, past and future. This happiness is mere excitement caused by relief from pain. But real happiness is utterly unself-conscious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the reason I said what I did about the happiness. And Barbara said it very well. You know, if today is the day of happiness, tomorrow will be the world day for disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes. And one other little thing here. He says, to see everything as imagination born of desire is necessary for self-realization. We miss the real by lack of attention and create the unreal by excess of imagination.
That's it, precisely so. And it reminds me, I wanted to tell Tammy, with this attention that you notice that you bring to bear upon things, what you want to do is bring that attention to bear upon attention. Pay attention to attention itself. It's never been looked at. You've never paid much in the way or any attention to attention. Do that now. Just put your foot, or just make it don't make it a practice, but just if you think about it, pay attention to attention, and that'll widen up what you experienced here today.
Beautiful, Fred. Thanks so much. Thanks to everyone for these interesting comments today.
Yeah, this is just terrific. Thank you very much, Lloyd. Judy, come on in.
Hi there, everybody.
Hi there. How are you, dear?
Oh, I'm fine, actually.
Good. Good.
But I'm in a swirl from all of this. This has been amazing. They all are, but again, here it is, another amazing satsang. So I don't know where I'm going to land talking to you. I'm not even sure where I'm going to start. So.
Well, I don't either, and an entire satsang unfolds. So
okay. Well, I wanted to start by talking about how I hate to talk. In satsang particularly, it just seems very scary, unlike talking to you directly, which is very open. But anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think it just brings up that this year I've really been looking at conditioning, and that certainly is part of it, you know.
Yeah.
But something that was said yesterday in talking with one of the satsang members really got me, which was that, you know, we have all these senses, touch, taste, feeling, seeing, but that the mind in India is said to be the sixth sense. Mm. And that just threw it into a completely different view or category for me. I felt distanced from it, and looking at my desire to always know and figure out and, you know, then do. And what we're talking about today, that sentence, awakening is not an experience, is so fascinating. It just draws you.
It does.
And when I feel like I can't speak, like when a teacher would call on me, I was like, I get that frozen thing where the mind simply will not work. It's just empty. But I don't feel that way right now.
So the first exercise in the workbook of A Course in Miracles starts out with saying, nothing in this room has any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely true. Nothing in this room or any room, none of this has any meaning. So what the mind is doing is it's just whirling around, applying meaning to everything. Isn't that right? It's just,
right,
that's
yes.
what it's got to do it. It's got to put it all together, got to get this puzzle together. Everything's got its own special meaning.
Mhm.
And it's just thought.
Right. It's just, and then it builds the story, and then you can have the reaction, and then you go through your,
It's what Lord was talking about, in the sense that thoughts arise,
right.
and then thoughts arise, and then next thing you know, there's just a string
Right.
of thought, and it's just doing this, right?
Right.
So, and this string of thought, it's a string, but it's not a chain, it's not linked. And it's trying to link everything to itself, right?
What is that linking trying?
So that is the conditioning that arises spontaneously when thoughts intermingle. I don't know how to say that better. And now I can't remember what the question was, so I couldn't possibly say it better.
About
Tell me
linking
again.
thoughts for meaning.
So what is now? Say that again.
It was about linking a string of thoughts together to, find
And
meaning.
what was your
in them.
question?
What was my question?
Yeah, remember?
My real question is, what is this mind?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the mind, and that's what I'm saying, is that there is no mind.
Mm.
We speak of the mind, but the mind is just like the character.
Right.
The character that we believe is here, that believe that we are until we see that we aren't, then that is simply a bunch of patterns, like Hurricane Fred. Yeah, a bunch of patterns, but there's no Fred in there. But we name those patterns. And when these patterns come up here, they just play together. And there is the sense that there's the development of a false center. Yes? Around that. That's exactly right. But these thoughts, somehow, I don't understand how it works exactly, but I know it pretty well. And that they're patterns of thought. They're patterns just in the sense of that there are physical patterns of energy, there are patterns of, and there are thought patterns, which is, I'm a guy and it's 2022 and I'm Caucasian and I don't live in Africa, right? Or whatever. Yeah, so whenever these thoughts, they seem to coalesce, and when it appears that when we imagine their adhesion to each other, that there's a coalition, that there is a sense of a center, of that there are all these, that I can see Judiness, I can listen to Judiness, I'm charmed by Judiness, but there's no Judy.
Mm-hmm.
That body has all the meaning that I've assigned to it. So and it's the same way, the character is a false center, so is the mind. The mind is a false center. It's there, we speak of it as if it's true. Even after we wake up, we still refer to the character.
Mhm.
And sometimes I have to tell people, there is no character, because
Right.
otherwise they'll blame stuff on the character. Which means that they have breathed life back into it. So the character is a false center, and the mind of that false center of character is also a false center. There's no mind. We have scientists that study the brain,
Right.
but nobody can put the mind under a microscope
Mhm, mhm.
because there's no physical center there. There's no physical center of Fredness here. There's no Fred.
So the more comfortable or the more ability to station in unknowing, the clearer you can see this.
Yeah, because as when the mind is establishing meaning for everything else, it's building a story.
Right.
It's not what is, it's building a story about what is, which
Mhm.
has meaning to us, and which means it's just created in us,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's
So it's playing Dr. Oz and the wizard all the time.
yeah. That's it. Pay no attention to that little man behind the curtain.
Mhm, right, which is that simple
Yeah,
before
right.
consciousness unknowing.
Yeah, there's nothing there. There's just there's that big head, and there's, fire and smoke and noise and all of that, the mighty Oz. But when you go in, there's just nothing there, right?
So part of this process for me then has been to get beyond being afraid of that unknown and really being now
Yeah, because the
fascinated.
thing that is the
Drawn
thing,
toward it is better to me than fascinated.
the thing that is afraid of the unknowing is Judy.
Right.
It's identification as a Judy. And if I really give up to that, hell, there's no more Judy, and I don't want anything to do with that, says the false center, right? So it's a fear. We're so afraid that we're going to lose something we never had anyway. We're so afraid that we're going to lose our identity. But who is this hour of which I speak?
It's all bound up together.
It is. And so when we wake up, it's not that we come to see just that there's no Judy or no Fred. It is almost more astonishing when we realize that there never was one.
The unborn part.
You can't give up anything that you don't have. When I first started AA, and I went in and I said, my name is Fred and I'm powerless over alcohol, that was like God Almighty. I don't want to say that because that would be giving up my last little bit of control I felt over my drinking. But but shortly after I said that in AA, I realized, hell, I never had any control. I've just given up something I never had, which means I'm coming to see the truth. I never did have control.
So here, what I'm giving up is trying to know.
That's right. That's right. And it's the natural human pull. Everybody goes through it. It's just a matter of degree. But everybody, yours truly in spades, is that there's an insistence on understanding everything because we're applying meaning to everything. And all of these meanings certainly have to add up to something. But they don't. They add up to nothing.
I was laughing because I just read what Lloyd read. We could consider thoughts like ants.
Yeah. They are. And you can just, and all you need to do is put out a spoonful of peanut butter and you'll find ants.
Sugar.
Because ants will find that peanut butter, right? And they'll just whoosh.
Well, thank you, Fred.
Thank you, dear, so much. So who is next here? John Hayes, come on up.
Hey, Fred.
Hey, John, how are you?
My name is John, and I'm powerless over my mind.
Ha ha ha. You're powerless over thought.
Over thought, yes.
Yeah, because
And to continue with what Judy was saying, I always thought that the mind and the character are one and the same. They don't exist separately.
well, they don't exist, period.
Oh, God. Well, I wish I could be in that now. You said something earlier that really piqued my interest, that consciousness is also an arising.
Yes, correct.
And if I take that a little farther, that there's really a lot of an unknowing in that.
Yeah.
To the fact that going into unknowing, there's no consciousness of the self at all. And so the arising, I don't understand this, although I've experienced it, the arising of consciousness comes about and then takes hold of the unit.
The arising of consciousness creates the sense of a separate self. There's no separate self before or after or any time. So, but upon the arising of consciousness, there will be that. Then, when consciousness it is an inherent, like what the way it's usually said is that, like sugar is to sweet. In other words, you've got sugar and its essence is sweetness. If you can have white powder without sweetness, but that's not sugar. You can't have sugar without sweetness, because sweetness is the essence of sugar. And it's the same thing with these. There is now I've forgotten where I was going, but at any rate, okay. So there simply is no character without the unit, the sweetness, the essence of one of these bodies, or a dog body or a cat body or a mosquito body. The essence of a unit is consciousness. That is right. You can have a body without consciousness, but it'll soon be off this planet. You can have but because these bodies, as Nisargadatta used to put it, it's a good way to think of it. These bodies are the food of consciousness, literally the food of consciousness.
But consciousness itself then can, it's not a good word, but leave. So there's, and then arise again, and
yes,
then arise again.
Well, but it's not, but we're talking about consciousness appearing and disappearing because it's an arising. We're not talking about a specific consciousness. It's the same way that, right? If you look at it this way, so whatever it is that you are, what do you recall prior to the birth of the John unit?
Nothing.
Yeah. And so there was no consciousness. So there's no memory because there's nothing to remember. Just like deep dreamless sleep, what do you remember from that? Nothing. Why? There was no consciousness. And I'm just foolish enough to think that could be the same thing that one can look forward to at the end of death, at the end of life, because nirvana, as it was originally meant, means extinction. Because we're Christians in a world, we always equate nirvana with heaven, but it's a heavenly experience to not have any experience. Right?
Right. In a reading yesterday, I just wanted to just to read a little bit here from I Am That, acting in the now is not much helped by your preparedness. Clarity is now, action is now. Thinking of being ready impedes action, and action is the touchstone of reality. And the questioner says, even when we act without conviction, you cannot live without action. And behind each action, there is some fear or desire. So, and that's what I experience. I don't do anything. I don't take any action without thinking about it.
You don't think you do.
Pardon?
You don't think you do. You ever burp?
Did I have a birth?
No. Do you ever burp after a meal?
Yes.
Yeah. Who did that? It's action. Did you take it?
It happened.
It happens.
Yeah.
So does everything, John. See, you're still thinking you're a John when you say, I don't take action without. There's no one saying that. There's no John that either takes action or doesn't take action. Action takes place. And right. And this thought center that we're talking about, the thought center of the mind that will dream up a thought center of a body, right? It believes it's in control of this body, but you're not even, you're not in control of your thought. I mean, you just aren't. What if I was in control of my thought, I would think good thoughts all the time, happy thoughts all the time. And I noticed that doesn't occur. I mean, I don't think much in the way of horrible thought at all, but I don't think happy, gay thoughts all the time. It just isn't the way of it. But because thoughts occur, thoughts happen, so does action. In truth, like yesterday, there was a guy walking to go into this exhibit, and the last thing he was expecting was for his body to walk over and help me up. But there was no thought. He was a nurse. He came over and he immediately turned him, and it did instant. There were other people around. He immediately walked to me and put out his arm and said, "Let me help you up, sir. I do this for a living." And
there lies the opening. And the opening to no thought, as Nisargadatta said, ultimately, all you do is based on your conviction that the world is real and independent of yourself. Were you convinced to the contrary, your behavior would have been quite different. So acting without thinking, I mean, and actually some action would need some thought in a constructive way, but the opening in terms of awakening.
Whose thought would it need?
Well, if you and I were sitting in the now right now, we were going to plan a trip to California.
If we were,
yes.
But we are. This is the now.
This
is the now. So the thing to understand is, where do these thoughts that you think, where do they come from?
I don't know.
The guy yesterday, he had a thought, and he may have even thought, I thought to go over and get this guy, but he didn't. He didn't think about going to get me until I fell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So his body was actually following events, not a line of thinking. He's aimed toward this. He's talking to his family, and then all of a sudden, there's a new condition.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new circumstance, and the circumstances was this unit falling, and conditioning always rises to meet circumstance. The conditioning that arose within that other body was the guy didn't have to think to do that. It happened. He may think, I thought to do it. Where did the thought come from? I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've talked to lots of people, and lots of people tell me that their very best thoughts come like when they're in the shower. That's what all of Betsy's best thoughts come in the shower when they're not thinking. So you're, in other words, you're allowing there to be the thoughts are vacated, which finally leaves space for awakeness to work through. When the Chinese talk about the Tao, they never say, here's what I'm going to do with the Tao. They recognize that the Tao, the way they will see it, is that the Tao plays through the body. There's no entity in the body. And there is a body, but there's no entity in there. When the Tao works directly through a body, then proper action occurs. It just will do it. It can happen. It happens when you got a basketball player that isn't thinking. He this just happens, and it's a and it's a 40-foot shot to win the game. Or the professional baseball player, he's at the plate, and this 98 mile per hour fastball that's coming in, suddenly it looks like a basketball. How the hell could you miss that, right? And it's just that zone is not the presence of thought working miracles. It's the absence of thought which allows for this so-called miraculous action to take place.
And they call that being in the zone.
Yeah. But the only thing being is that when they call it in the zone, they're thinking that there's an entity there that's in the zone. What we could say is that more accurate would be not that that there's a Fred in the zone, but that in the absence of Fredness there is zoneness. Yeah, because it would be otherwise. Fred is in the zone and now he's out of the zone and can't hit a ball to save his life. Where it's in the same way that we think that we have these breakthroughs of clarity, or we think that we can recall an awakening or something like this. And it's just not true, because what woke up was awakeness, and what awakeness woke up to was the bliss and beauty of a John free experience. And that John free moment that's not an experience for John. The mind will immediately appropriate it, and it will become a fond memory for John or Fred. And I was haunted for 14 years by an awakening that I demanded to understand, and I demanded to understand it, and I demanded that it return to Fred for Fred, and so the ego was looking for a repeat performance of something it wasn't present for the first time.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, John. Okay, let me get my phone dropped here. Okay, so Sri, hello. How are you?
Able to hear me?
Yeah. Not well. There's a lot of echo in it, but I can hear you.
Okay. Let me come closer to the mic. Is it better now?
That's very helpful. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, happy to be in the Satsang.
Thank you.
So I want to say hi to all of you.
Yeah.
I was reading an interesting book recently by an author called Suzanne Segal. The name of the book was The Collision with Infinite. I don't know, maybe you might have heard about it.
I've read it. Yeah.
Yes. So she has chronicled her experience of awakening in a very vivid and a lucid way. And she was she was a Jewish woman who probably lived in the 1940s to 1996, around the time frame. And she was initially like a transcendental meditation. She used to do a lot of meditation initially, but then she went into the normal lifestyle of, relationships, family and everything. And what she said was when she initially awakened, there was some sort of like a witness consciousness that came into her. Like the eye got located to kind of like the left of her brain here. So she was like seeing from here, not from here anymore, actually. And she was able to see her head and the mind and everything from like a little bit like 1 feet below the left. And it kind of freaked her out, and she couldn't figure out what it is. She was trying to put the eye back into her normal place, but she couldn't do it. It was always like witness watching it from behind, kind of like a cosmic witness consciousness. And even during sleep, it was there. This eye was watching all the time. And after a few months, she was standing at like a bus stop, and she was trying to board a bus.
Right.
Something like an invisible force kind of like completely pushed her sense of self out of her. Suddenly she was no longer Susan, right? The whole thing about Susan, I, me, everything was gone. She was completely left with the body and the mind. That's it. Nothing was there. There's no consciousness about I am this person actually. The person consciousness completely went away. And that also kind of freaked her out. She went to a lot of psychologists. She didn't fully understand what really happened actually. And after like 11 years, she had another awakening, the final fruition after talking to so many people. And somebody said, you actually had a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. It was not a psychological problem. And then she had what is called a unity consciousness, meaning like she felt like she was everything around this world, like the whole of existence. Like when she was driving, it looked like the car was driving through her. When the sound was happening, it was like sound was coming from within her, not from outside. All the objects she was seeing, everything was kind of her. There was no separation at all. Everything was her. So it was like the way in which she described, it's like the witness consciousness, the emptiness, and then this cosmic consciousness or this unity consciousness. Is that something?
It's similar to what we're doing, but she continued to suffer until she talked to what's his name? Jean Klein.
John Klein, yes, John Klein.
She talked to Jean Klein. He's the one she said that he was the only one that finally got through and told her what had happened and this and that, the other. Because what you have there is, and this is not throwing stones at anybody, but what you have is a lot of egoic ownership and description of something that wasn't happening to an ego. So it is the ego, and the consciousness can't describe that which is prior to it, and the ego cannot, the self, the so-called self, the brain cannot possibly describe that which is prior to it, which is simply consciousness. So the only thing that can come to have a unity consciousness, see, what she's telling you is that my name is Susan, and or Suzanne Segal, whatever it is, and I had unity consciousness. Well, I will understand. I mean, I have a similar experience, only there's no Fred there. You get that?
Yes.
So anybody who's explaining to you their experience of unity consciousness has not yet seen that there's no there, that there's no one there who's having that experience. There is just unity. And it's not, there's only unity. And the unity experience, which can be what we call the unity experience, that can be experienced, is I've had that too, and it is very, very blissful. And I've had it a number of times, but I hadn't had it in a long time, which is there's this very visceral, right straight from the gut and the heart and the head and everything, the whole, there's just this, oh, it's a recognition, and it's complete recognition with it can be everything, but it's realizing that this chair is me.
Yeah.
I am everything, said who, right? And there will, because the experience will be non-dual.
Yes.
But that will be immediately usurped by the character who will report, I had a unity experience. So it's of which there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, because I ain't having that unity experience anymore. Oh, really? Really? So you're telling me that unit ended with that unity has a timetable when it exists and when it doesn't. This is what we can't understand. It's what Lord was talking about. Really, we can't understand the absence of experience. There is only unity. No individual in the world has ever had the experience of unity. That's one of those big experiences I just told you about. We report it as a unity experience. But the only thing that can actually come to experience unity is unity.
Right.
So it's just, we have to be very careful, because what she did, part of what she did was she got lost in her own map of the world.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there's the power of language. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just one more question, related question is, once you awaken or realize, or maybe the illusion drops off, you are no longer the self, or the small self, will the experience of the outer world change a little bit? The sense gates, like the hearing, seeing, smelling,
Let me ask
tasting?
you,
Yeah.
during an awakening session, did hearing disappear?
No.
Did sight disappear?
No.
There was no separate self at our awakening session.
Right. But
But you're now telling me, in that experience of unity, Fred, what, an experience of being oneness or being awareness, what is it that happens? I say, look around and find out.
right.
Because there is a Shri built into your question. And that's what I'm trying to pull out, so that awakeness can see its error in inserting a Shri where there isn't one.
True. So the external experience would still be the same as there was a Sri before, or would it be
For who?
different? For this unit. Would it be the same, or would it be different?
Well, who is it that wants to know what experience will be like for the unit?
The awakeness. I want.
Oh, bullshit. That's just trying to get the right answer. I understand. It's the awakeness has no particular druthers about experience.
Yeah.
It's the character. You've gone back into it in misidentification. And the character wants to know. So when I wake up, Fred, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But you've actually already woken up very clearly and seen that there's only this, and there's no one having this experience that's going to change after no one realizes. It's right. You have to recognize that it's realization. It's that recognizes realization. And there's no, we always want to plug a noun into there. We want to plug a me into that. I want to know what my experience is going to be like when I wake up. And that's the reason I said, look at our awakening experience, look at our awakening session, where I've spoke to myself very, very clearly. But the problem is that right after at some point after we hung up, we left Zoom, there came in, and apparently it was probably pretty excited if it was like the Fred unit. And there was an excitement that came in. I finally got it. Oh God, I can't believe it. And now that I've got it, the first thing I notice is I'm losing it. I'm not as clear as I was an hour ago, and I don't know why, because there's an I there. Because you've gone back to, you're experiencing re-misidentification. Think of that word, re-misidentification, because what happens is when you arrive on the planet and you are an infant, there's no identification. There's no separate, there's no experience of separation. There's just this unnamed. And when awake, and then you're trained you know, and the body would have its own experience of some sort of identification, but this deep identification, you're trained into it. You're pushed into it. And
Right.
so it is only natural that you would go from no identification to identification, and you wake up and now there's no identification again. And I mean, just like at birth, and then there's re-identification after that. What we are doing here is consistently, this is the reason I told you that, you know, that satsang is so important, because it's very difficult to get this on your own. I couldn't. I went for almost 3 years without, or around 3 years, in post-awakening, not fully clearing, because I was of a mind that I was going to do it by myself. And well, who was at the wheel? Fred. And
Right.
Fred can't clear Fredness. Right?
Right.
Only
Yeah.
awakeness can clear awakeness. So it's
Yeah.
coming to see right now that there's no Shri, and that what's talking right now is that this is awakeness. There's no Fred.
Mhm.
There's no teacher here. There's a parent teaching, but no one's doing it. No one's getting it. Right.
Right.
So there's only this, let's just call it oneness for a minute. We'll just call it oneness because it's a great working term. There's only oneness. So what am I talking to? What's this got to be talking to? I have to be talking to oneness. Do you get that? Can you see that little bit of oneness means there's just one thing. There's not Shri plus the one thing.
Right.
Which is what kicks in, is I finally get oneness. But then you're just like Suzanne Segal, which is, oh, I've had a terrific experience. I got on the bus, and just as I was climbing, I wonder how awakeness grabbed the handle. Right? I mean, and I wonder how awakeness had to grab the thing to get off of the bus, and then awakeness left the bus. I mean, it's insane, but it's perfectly natural. That's the way it works. But we have to come to see that the one who's just trying to get a little more insight is the thing that has been confused all along into thinking that there's a separate Shri and a separate Fred. There's not. There's only this. And what comes to see this can only be this.
Yes.
So right now, this is oneness talking to oneness, isn't it?
Yes.
And
That's
oneness has come to oneness, and oneness is, kind of grumbling and oneness wants to know what will happen when oneness begins to have the oneness experience.
Right. Yes.
What will that be like? Well, do you think it could be like this? Oh, no. It'll be nothing like this. It will be like something else. Is there anything else? No, but don't bother me with the truth. I'm having a nice fantasy.
Right.
You see? And I hope you understand that I'm not laughing at you. I'm being comical to help awakeness come to see the cosmic joke again.
Yeah. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you very much, Shri.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Robin, come in, and Ted will be the last. Robin.
Yeah, I'll make it short. I've been thinking about a word which might cover unity and the unity experience and a lot of other stuff, and it's continuum.
Yeah.
The word continuum, where there's not a lot of individuals sort of feeling togetherness or whatever. There's just a continuum. And I was inspired by what Barbara Smith was telling about her neighbor who died. And I've had some experiences lately where it's the quality of, somebody once said, I don't know if it's Eckhart Tolle, but somebody once said, the greatest gift you can give another person is the quality of your presence.
Yeah. I think
I don't know if it's him who said it, but But I feel when we're at satsang, what makes you shine is what is our if not you, Fred, but
Yeah. No. What makes the
this
shining
process?
appear?
It's a continuum, and it's the quality of our attention is giving the quality of the content. If you know what I mean.
I do get it. And continuum is a perfect word. In some awakening sessions, I will use a test like that or an experiment, which is look across the room, find an object, and tell me what it is. Remember this?
Yes.
Tell me what it is. And they'll say, okay, well, and tell me how far away it is from the Fred unit's body or the Bob unit's body. And so Bob will look across the room and he'll see a house plant. He'll say it's a house plant and it's about 8 feet from the Bob unit's body. I'll say, okay, now look at it again. Now report, and it's y'all do this. I mean, many of you have already done it, but if you haven't, you can do it again and it'll still work because I do it. So when we look at the house plant that second time, just see if you can tell where the looker ends and the looked at begins. And nobody has ever told me, yeah, right around here or something. What everybody and my word to them as soon as they can't find it is what you find is a single continuum. And they say, yes. And that's the way that little play works. And it is astounding how much clarity can be found by simply doing that, because it brings us back to the basics of quote, there's no I, but if there, but, and there's no we, but there is only this awake space. And there are certainly within relativity, there are certainly these appearances, but the truth doesn't come and go. And these do, and that lamp will, and the chair will, and that house will, hundreds of years old. Compare it to geologic time, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Fred. Thanks.
That's a perfect word. Ted, come on in.
Yeah, Fred, I'll be quick. I just wanted to, the earlier part of the satsang, you talked a lot about character and how it's no such thing. And one of the hardest things for me has been recognizing that I'm not the doer.
When you say one of the hardest things for me, Ted, who are you talking about?
One of the hardest things to overcome is that I'm not the doer. And
who is it, the I'm that you're referring to? It's a false reference.
Yeah, the energized character.
There's no character that's energized, no character that's energized, and there's no character that is exhausted. There's
awakeness is doing something through this thing.
Awakeness is experiencing localized identification,
right,
with that body. And when it does that, it suffers because it believes it is that, and immediately the moment that happens, it's me against the world.
And it thinks it's also doer too.
Well, it's certainly it's the doer of all the things that this body does. How do I know? Because I think so.
So anyway, I'll be quick. Ramesh Balsekar talks about this really, really clearly.
He was great at this.
For Judy and John, if they wanted to look up, there's an interview with a woman named Rifka something, Rifka. Really good interview. She's obviously.
Which book is this?
It's a video on YouTube.
Okay.
The YouTube video with Ramesh and being interviewed by a Rifka. So it's really good. It's really clear on this little section of what we talked about today.
So notice what I want you to notice is that it's not really clear to Ted.
Ted's still confused. I have to abandon that.
There's no Ted.
Yes, I know.
So yes, so the thing that's saying I know is a thought pattern that automatically comes up to cover for the fact that whatever it is you are doesn't know.
Yeah, that's right.
You see that? It's a thought pattern. You didn't think, you know what, I think I'm going to say so-and-so, or it's just a pattern that arises. It's a false reference. It's, I ask you the question, does the president of England need a haircut? And up comes, well, I'm not sure. Oh, there is no president of England. But for the moment there, you had me going as to whether he did or didn't. And that's the same thing these thought patterns do, only there's no realization in the middle of that thought. There is no Ted, and immediately a thought will come up and say, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so
But
lack
that's
of thought.
Ted recognizing that there's no Ted. And that is the bubble of self-reflection. It's only when awakeness itself comes to see that there's no Ted. And as difficult as that may sound, there's no one there to get it wrong. It's a matter of seeing what already is. And the seeing of what already is can only be seen by what already is. It cannot be seen by the illusion of a separate thing. This whole illusion is the same place that Sri was, is right where Suzanne was. You know, Suzanne, the book, and it's where everybody is that comes, that when they, well, there's some awakened beings that come to me, but other than those awakened beings, where everybody is when they come to me, every single person. And there can be clarity so that you can be, you sort of be at the bottom of the bubble of self-reflection, and you can rise to the top where you can see more, and you get more and more and more, but you cannot see that still the bubble remains of a me that here that needs to get it. And when in fact all that has to be seen, but it has to be, you have to believe your own non-experience. When you had your awakening, that was not an experience by Ted. That was an experience by awakeness of a Ted-free moment. And in that moment where there's no Ted, when you take away what's false, only the truth is left, and that's what shines. And it's so, but when it's seen that there's no Ted, it's also seen there never was a Ted, ever. So there's nothing, you don't actually get rid of anything, you don't lose anything. There doesn't have to be some sort of awakening by some kind of entity or anything like that. There's no awakening. In fact, it feels like awakening for a unit. So that's what with the word language we will use, but there's only realization. And the act of realization requires what? Noticing what's already here. It doesn't require any practices. It doesn't take any time. I'm not saying that practices can't be useful. They are, certainly can and can be and are, but practices really are either going to help wear the seeker out, which is a good thing, or they are, they can build up the sense that I'm a better and better practitioner. And man, we have really lost it there. When we take pride in being a better practitioner than that guy, what we're saying is the odds of my ever waking it up just went way down, so to speak. And of course, there's no I there. There's only awakeness to do it. But there will be the claim of an I who is superior or inferior to them, because there's an I over here. And look at me. That I am absolutely powerless. I can't feed myself. I can't change my diapers, nothing. And these people who can do all of those things, they're saying, Ted this, Ted that, Ted do this thing. What the hell? I give up. Okay, I'm Ted. Well, then Ted, sit up. Okay. Because that unit has to fit in, or it will not survive its experience on the planet. But that is a story that is useful within the upbringing of a child. but it should be left along with other childish things. Because the idea that there's a me here trapped on one side of something, you know, that because we talk about the veil, but we also talk about the gateless gate. It's the veilless veil. There's when we talk about awakening, it's really realization. It's recognizing, shit, there ain't been a Ted here ever, which means that everything you know is wrong. Everything. And that sounds awful at first. I don't want to be wrong about everything. And then there is the letting go of having to be right, of having to understand, and there becomes simply being. And this simple being, that is the satisfaction. It's satisfaction, not for anybody, but it's just satisfaction. It is the ending of the burning itch. And then, you know, like Sri, God bless him, the same thing I did, right? Is that just, you know, a few hours later, it'll be, oh, I really woke up. That guy can do it. That guy can really do it. I need to go back and get him to do it again, right? And it's, and you run into somebody and they say, wow, you're doing great. And he said, yeah. That Fred Davis, he can really do it. He can probably do it for you too. But the truth is there's no Fred Davis. There's only this awakeness. And it is awakeness speaking to awakeness. There's no Ted over there. There's no separate unit over there. The air contains all appearances. There's an appearance over there, and there's an appearance over there that believes it has a mind. I mean, there's a string of thoughts that believes it's a mind. There's a string of patterns that believes it's a character. You know, and this is just a way of putting it. There's a string of patterns, and from that comes the sense of a mind. And there's a string of physical patterns, and from that comes the sense of a physical being. But the thing to understand is that when we're talking about the sense of these patterns, when we're talking about the sense of mind, the sense of body, a sense of something is not the truth of something. Even the sense of being is not the truth. It is the truth as far as down the well we can go. But it's a sense that there's something here that hasn't got something else. And the only thing that's here is this, and it is everything already. So when everything realizes, hell, I'm everything, then what can go wrong? Because the everythingness of this is unborn. It cannot be, it cannot be hurt, and it does not die. And we'll end there.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you for your patience, Ted. We'll let me get to the larger view here, please. Hello, all of those who've been with us all along, and those of you who have arrived. Boy, it's just great to see you this Sunday. I do hope that I will gaze upon you again, upon your oneness next Sunday, says oneness. I love all one of you. See you then. Bye for now.